Do you struggle with consistent processes and systems in your business? Because that's exactly what we're going to tackle today with our guest, Mike Jones. He is the owner of EOS Worldwide. We're going to be breaking down the 6 key components on how to develop your processes and systems in your business. He's going to give you the exact framework of how to hold a team meeting consistently every single week that ensures everybody's on the same page. With that being said, let's start the show. Welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have a very special guest with us today, Mike Jones, who, yep, that's right, Mike Jones, baby, in the house with EOS Worldwide. He is an owner, and we're going to be talking and breaking down what you, as the agency owner, need to be doing to have more control of your business, of your life, to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, my man.
Thanks, y'all. Good to see you.
Absolutely. So the one thing that we always get questioned, I feel like this is a conversation we have weekly with agency owners, is production is difficult right now. There are good things coming in the horizon. What do I need to be doing right now from a systems standpoint to make sure my house is in order? And that's what I really want to work with you today on and talk to you about is if you have an agency owner that is wanting to get back to the basics, build their foundation wide with solid processes and systems that allow them to achieve their goals, have more freedom in their business. Let's go through that.
Okay. Yeah. So EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I'll just give you real quick, what it is. And then we can talk about some of the specific tools that we use to help business owners get what they want out of the business. And that's what we do. That's what EOS is for. It's so that business owners can get what they want out of their business and their life. And what we do is we give them a simple set of tools and a complete process that helps them develop 3 things: vision, traction, and healthy. And so vision is getting everyone on their leadership team 100% on the same page with who they are and where they're going. Traction is instilling discipline and accountability so that everywhere they go within the company, people are executing towards that vision. And then healthy is developing cohesive, fun-loving leadership teams. Because so often that's not the case. They're not healthy. They're not fun-loving. And so we say, so goes the leadership team, goes the rest of the organization. And we roll things out to get to the point where everywhere in the organization, they're seeing that vision, 100% on the same page, traction, executing with discipline and accountability, and healthy, fun-loving, cohesive leadership teams. And so that's what we're aiming to do. And we use a simple set of tools in order to do that in the EOS process.
All right. I want to hear about these tools, but I also want to know, because look, processes and systems, like, it's all great in theory, but when we get into the business, shit happens. All right. Shit happens. I've been in business before. You've been in business before. Mike, you probably have as well, to where like you're just running and gunning. Maybe the systems aren't all the way built out. Maybe they are built out, but the team's not doing them. You're just doing whatever you can. But that has led me to burnout in the past, because I felt like I was running and then one thing would get dropped or another thing would get dropped. So not only do I want to hear about the tools that you have, but I'd also love to just hear, like, how do I, as a entrepreneur, business owner, hold myself accountable, hold my team accountable to these processes?
Yeah. So the thing that I typically see with entrepreneurs and founders, and a thing that I've experienced myself as a founder, is you're running a million miles an hour. You've got 136 issues in your head that you're trying to solve all at once. You don't have time to slow down and work on the business ever. And that's what I'm trying to do when I work with other leadership teams, is help them slow down, take a breath, figure out what they're prioritizing, what they're really trying to focus on, where they're trying to go in the short term and long term, so that they can use the systems and tools in order to push things forward. Because that's without being able to slow down and work on the business, most entrepreneurs are just running hair on fire all day, every day. And I think, we're the three of us, we're all entrepreneurs. We've been there and we know that playing in that survival mode every day, it can work for a while, but it doesn't work in the long run to push things forward and be proactive. So that's what we're trying to solve to get people to work on the business.
Hearing this, I can even feel the emotions as an entrepreneur of like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, I keep hitting the same wall over and over, but I don't have enough time. So I love that we're going to kind of break down where to focus, even to like carve out intentional time of like, this is where we want to start. So for me, I'm going to start with the vision and the leadership team, because when I'm talking to an insurance agency, typically, it's the insurance agent, maybe middle management of some sort, like an office manager, a sales manager, and then it goes into the producers and the service team. So, who would you even put? Let's start there on the leadership team.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I work with a couple insurance companies and they are anywhere from a couple people up to I've got a 12, 13, 14 person insurance company that I work with. And so the way you start is going to be, if you're just you and one other person, it's whoever that is, that's your team. But at some point, you start adding producers, you add maybe virtual assistants, maybe you add office people. And at some point, you get to the point where the whole company is not your leadership team. So you have to create a separation. And so the way we break things down in EOS is very simple. So we break things down structure first. And that's actually the first thing when we implement EOS with companies is establish what we call the accountability chart. And that is establishing the structure of the organization so that we can get the right people in the right seats. And so I know you mentioned vision, but this is actually the people component. And so we establish the structure and we go under the assumption that all organizations have a marketing and sales function, operations function, and a finance function. And then from there, we customize it for the individual organization. And so to answer your question, your leadership team, regardless of the size of the organization, needs to cover all the key functions of the organization: marketing, sales, operations, and finance. And then you have to have your leadership. So in EOS, we call it the integrator, which is running the day to day. And then the visionary, which is pushing things forward, strategy, high level. And so with a small organization of, let's say, 5 to 10 people, you might have individuals sitting in multiple seats, and that's okay. What you have to have for your leadership team is all those functions covered. So you just make sure you have those functions covered, and that answers who sits in your leadership team.
Okay, so you just threw out a term that they might not be familiar with. Our listeners might not know the difference between an integrator and a visionary, and you did a great job explaining it. I'm going to give you my description of a visionary. So Michael and I are both visionaries, and what it looks like in our household is before noon, I will have had 3 cups of coffee, and I will have sent out a good 1,400 emails of different ideas of like, you know what? Let's just try. Let's try this. What about this? Have we thought of this? And then the integrator comes in and she says, first of all, you've had too much caffeine. You need to drink some water. And I'm going to take all these ideas and I'm going to distill them down to what we need to focus on. So if you're listening and you're like, which one am I? Pick your box. See which one you fit in. Are you one that likes to get things done? Or are you one that's highly caffeinated, sending out lots of ideas? Okay.
Yeah, that's a great. So just out of curiosity, if you both work together and you're both visionaries, do you have an integrator that runs your
Yes.
business, or do one of you is one of you forced into the integrator seat?
Currently where we're at, we have someone that runs operations, so our
Okay.
COO. Now, in prior businesses, I would tell you that I tended to
Oh, yeah.
be both visionary and integrator, but I think that that's also what led to burnout. But like when we very first started our very first business, we only had 5 grand to our name. So it wasn't like we had a lot of capital. So it always comes back to the money time. Like, okay, well, I have a lot of time. I have some knowledge, but I don't have a lot of money. And so right now though, we're at a point where we do have that integrator, which has been one of the best decisions we've ever made in our business.
Yeah, it could be a game changer. And so yeah, just to get into the specifics. So we like to lay things out and we say that all organizations have a visionary and an integrator. In some organizations, when they're just starting out, that might be one person. So let me break down the two descriptions and then talk about how to evolve from a company of one to a company of many. And so the integrator is the person that runs the day to day of the organization, that just like Courtney described, gets stuff done on a daily basis, pushes things forward, coordinates the different functions in the organization. Chief operating officer, president, whatever you want to call it. That's the person pushing things forward, executing the vision on a day to day basis. The visionary is the big idea person, the person that shows up with 20 ideas a day, person that likes high level strategy, big relationships, generally doesn't like conflict, does not like getting in the weeds. Okay. And so those are two separate functions in an organization. And when there are two people who are in the right seats, visionary and integrator, that's when you have what we call rocket fuel. That's when we have magic. That's some of the great leaders in the world's great corporations, Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg.
The two Steves.
Yeah, the two Steves, that's rocket fuel. When you have the balance, it creates magic. And that's what you want to strive for. Now, when you have an organization of just a couple people, you might have like what Michael described, which I've done as well, which is if you're running the company, you may be more of a visionary, but if you're in the integrator seat, because you have to build the company, you have to execute the job of the integrator and the visionary. And that's fine for a while. But if you're meant to be a visionary from a personality standpoint, at some point you have to elevate and get an integrator to help you, or you're going to burn out, which sounds like the two Mikes have done that, and we should talk about that another time. And so what we try to do is identify those roles, and if there is a visionary in the organization as it's growing, the organization is going to do better if you can identify it and move that person up into the visionary seat and identify an integrator. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, all right. So we've got the difference between the visionary and integrator. So let's get to those the six tools that you were talking about that a business owner can use to help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah, so I mentioned EOS, simple set of tools, and we tie them to what we call six key components that all businesses have. Okay, and so what we say is to the extent that business owners can get strong on these six key components that I'll briefly explain, all the issues that you have, generally speaking, start to work themselves out, and you get down to real root issues that you have to work through on a weekly basis as a team. So those six key components are: one, vision. Vision is getting everyone 100% on the same page with who you are and where you're going. People is finding great people. And so, what does great people look like? We have a way of identifying and finding them for your specific organization, but it's all about getting right people in the right seat. Data is managing your business with facts, figures, and objective information, as opposed to feelings, egos, emotions, which most small businesses operate under. And so when you get strong in vision, people, and data, your organization gets transparent. You start to actually be able to see clearly the problems and challenges that are facing your organization. And that brings you to the fourth key component, which is issues. And issues is having a mechanism and a process for bringing forward all those challenges and problems in your organization in a way that will get solved for the betterment of the organization. The fifth key component is process, and that's doing things the right way, the same way every time in your organization. And that makes the organization more scalable, makes it more profitable, and makes it more fun. And then the sixth key component is traction. And traction is bringing the vision down to the ground and executing with discipline and accountability. So those are the six key components. And so every issue that a business has, whether they run EOS or not, can be tied to those six key components. And we have tools that we use to get better at each of those six key components. And we're trying to get, we say 100% strong, but that's really a utopia. Nobody gets 100% strong in business because everything's always changing. So we say 80% strong. If you can get 80% strong, you can be a great team.
Okay, so you talked about if you have issues, you can tie it back to each one of these six boxes. So Let's briefly just go through what are the common pain points for vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction? Like, what are they feeling here so they can at least start with one of them?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, common pains. So vision, like most common pain is not having a clear vision. And what I mean by that is what is your long-term, medium-term, short-term plan is one. And then also, who are you? What are your core values? What is your core focus? What is your marketing strategy? Do you know who you are? So that's the first thing is most organizations don't actually have a clearly laid out vision. And then the other one is they haven't communicated it. So they might have it and it might be in the founder's head and he's like, I know exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And the rest of the company literally has no idea what is going on because they haven't heard it. And even if they've heard it once, they don't know it. Those are the two main things there. People is about getting right people in the right seat. So, right people, the biggest pain there is not knowing who right people are in your organization. So, our simple answer for that is what are your core values? Do they actually represent who you are? And do you use them to acquire the right people and fire the wrong people? And then right seats gets back to that structure accountability chart. What is the right structure for your organization? So the most common pain is not clearly laying out what the right structure is so that people know what their jobs are. Data is what we use is a simple scorecard. And so I'd say the common pain that comes to mind for me is either not looking at enough data or looking at too much data and over analyzing. So I've seen it done and I've done it myself, both directions. So we use a simple 5 to 15 number weekly scorecard to get an absolute pulse on the business. So that's the first three. And then getting into the issues component, the biggest pain related to issues is not having a clear place to put those issues so that everyone in the organization, like if you have a 10-person insurance company, those 10 people, not just the owner, need to have a place where they can bring their problems forward and challenges and know that they're going to be resolved. And so that's probably the biggest common issue is there's not an actual place to bring those.
All right, 1 second though.
Yeah.
So when you say like a place to bring them, are you talking about like a cardboard box with like
He's
a
talking about
thing cut
psychological
out?
safety.
I know, come on now. But that could work too. Like here's my problem. Like put it in
Did it
there.
have like a whole like Michael
Yes,
Scott
kind of
moment?
like the old like Valentine's Day. Like I'm gonna put my Valentine's Day in the little box card. Like yeah,
Okay, I like it.
yeah.
I mean, I'm obviously not, that's not actually a box, but it's not a bad idea because it's pretty close to what I'm talking about, Michael. And what I mean is, one is the psychological safety that Courtney mentioned of knowing that I can bring up the issues that I'm facing in the organization so they can actually be solved in a productive way. But the other is an actual logistical mechanism of capturing those issues somewhere and having a place like an appropriate meeting for them to be resolved. And so, what I've found and what I think you all can probably relate to is there's not actually a place where people within the organization can go to talk about those issues and get them solved. What's typically the case is the leaders of the organization occasionally get like employee feedback and customer insights and things like that, but they're just kind of trying to figure things out as they go. What's better is that place, the box in quotes. In the EOS case, it's simply a weekly level 10 meeting with a specific agenda where people are encouraged to bring forth issues in a structured manner. So, does that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah,
my
man,
God,
that's
this is
great.
so
Team
good.
meetings instead of a Dropbox. I like the Dropbox idea.
Dude,
Like,
I think Michael
got a
Scott did that
problem?
legit in an episode of The Office.
I love that idea.
Like, okay,
I would like to do that.
it's like a Valentine's
All
Day.
right, I just had to clarify. All right, so
Yeah.
now we're in the process.
Yeah, so process is the biggest pain, just to lead with the pains, is a lack of clear process that is followed by everyone in the organization. So it's one, we don't actually have laid out at a high level the core processes that define how we do business. And every business has 6 to 10 core processes, sales, marketing process, a couple operational processes. most organizations don't have them laid out well so that everyone knows what they are. And then the other pain is it's not followed by everybody. Employees aren't measured in order to make sure that they're doing it right. And so those are the two areas there. And then finally, traction. We say discipline and accountability. That's having the tools we use are a 90-day world and a weekly meeting pulse. And so the biggest pain in that area would be just not really having a clear cadence of how you do business. How frequently do you do your strategic planning as an organization? How frequently do you set your key priorities? Do you actually set a few key priorities so that everyone's focused on a couple things and not trying to do everything? Because if you're trying to do everything, then you're not really going to do anything. And then what is that specific meeting cadence that works so that everyone can solve issues and you're not meeting too much, you're not meeting too little. It's just right is what's important because we've all seen everything in between. So that was just kind of off the cuff, kind of like some pains that I see with organizations as it relates to all the key components.
So with the traction, is that like the big three, like the rocks?
Yeah, the two tools in the traction component is rocks, which is the 3 to 7 key priorities of the organization, and then the meeting pulse, which in EOS we use what we call the level 10 meeting, which is a weekly specific meeting structure that same day, same week, same time, same structure every week. So yeah, that's exactly right.
When you say 3 to 7 key priorities, do you mean for the lifetime of the business, for the year, for the quarter? What does that look like?
So the way we structure it is we structure it 10-year, which is your BHAG, your one sentence long-term vision, 3-year, which is just revenue, profit, some measurable, and then some bullet points of what it looks like to give people a picture for what that 3-year looks like. And then 1 year is 3 to 7 goals for the year. And then quarterly, every 90 days is rocks. And that's the 3 to 7 priorities that the company is going to focus on to stay on track with your plan. Okay. And so the way we structure it is every quarter, you're running, you're in the business, you're working your butt off, and you stop, you take a day, you review how you did, you learn from your mistakes, you assess how things are going, you review your long term plan, and then you set your priorities for the next quarter. And that's 3 to 7, what we call rocks. And then you set your individual priorities. So we get to the point where everyone in the organization has at least one rock that they're focusing on. And then once that's established, you're back in the business working on a weekly basis. And so that's what we call the 90-day world, where you can just focus and you know what your priorities are. So you don't have to worry about all that other stuff because it's there somewhere, but we're focused on our rocks.
And you keep talking about this level 10 meeting, and this is a question I do get from a lot of agents. Like, okay, I know we're supposed to be meeting, but how do I structure these meetings? Like, how often should I be having meetings? So, if you had any advice for a business owner that's like structuring a meeting, what would you give them?
Yeah, so the level 10 meeting format is a specific agenda that we use. We use it because it works. It's for the leadership team. And then each department has their own variation of the level 10 agenda. It can be customized, shortened for each department, depending on the size of the organization. So the structure is a 90-minute meeting where you check in with each other, transition in the meeting. You review your rocks, on track, off track. You review your scorecard, which is those 5 to 15 key numbers to see if you have a pulse on the business. You review your to-dos. Did you hit them or not from the previous week? You report headlines, is what we call them, which is employee updates, customer updates, updates that need to happen that my fellow teammates need to know. And then we're into issue solving. We call it IDS, identify, discuss, and solve, which is taking that running list of issues that we have throughout the organization and prioritizing what we want to solve right now for the betterment of the organization. And so that structure, that IDS portion is 60 minutes. And so we do that every week. We start at the same time, we finish at the same time. You don't miss it. It gives clarity, it makes it predictable, It's a very powerful process. And for some organizations, this may sound obvious, but we all know, and your listeners probably know, the amount of small businesses that don't have a consistent meeting structure, or they have too many meetings that just run on, is most companies. And so having that real specific structure adds a lot of clarity and power to how you run the business.
So if I'm listening to this, when you went through all of the pain points, Mike, thank you for describing all of those. But if I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh, that's great. He just hit on every emotion that I am currently feeling in my business. I could hit all of those boxes. What would be like your one piece of advice to where I'm not overwhelmed to get started? Or where would you guide me to start?
Well, I would obviously guide you to call an implementer and get a session started just to lay out the tools. I can't not say that, of course, because every implementer in every market will give a free 90-minute session to lay out these tools and the process and how you get strong and the 6 key components. So that's a free session that is offered by every implementer worldwide. So that would be the first step. Another step would be read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And in the end is it's actually laid out how to start implementing these tools. And so you can do it on your own for a, $11 book. You can read the book or listen to it, and you can start immediately with one thing at a time and go as your time and energy allows it. Because when we implement, so people can implement EOS on their own, or they can hire an implementer like me who facilitates your planning sessions. When we implement, we tell people it's a 2-year journey because these are established companies like these insurance businesses. You're running your company. You are already busy. You are already overworked. So transitioning into a new system is a lot of extra work. So it is a long journey. So my recommendation would be start with what you can and chip away at it.
2 years. I'm glad that you said that because I'm listening and I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling good. And let's accomplish this in quarter 2. Let's just get it done in the next 90 days. And you're like, wait a minute, pump your brakes, pull off the coffee. We're going to take 2 years and we're going to do this. I think as a business owner, that's a breath of fresh air because there's so many things that stack onto your plate. And you know when you have a problem, but carving out intentional time and giving yourself permission to like implement it in a way that feels good, that's efficient, hearing that, oh, it's going to take some time is like, oh, okay, cool, cool. I can put the coffee down. All right.
Well, sometimes and that's gonna give a visionary permission because I know at least us as visionaries and Enneagram 3s, we're like, "Let's get this shit done now. Let's go." Like, so you automatically saying that from the very get-go gives them permission to be like, "Let's just calm down and look at this from a big perspective, long road perspective, and this is what the end will look like after those 2 years." So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be. I'm a visionary as well, and we're all super impatient and we want things to happen right now. We want to fix everything right now. And anything great takes time. It is a lot of work to set up the systems, make things so that you can scale, get your time back. We all know this. It takes a lot of work. So there's no sugarcoating that. There's no silver bullets here.
Well, that makes me feel better because we hired our CEO about 2 years ago. It has been a process. Like it's been a giant process, but again, it has been one of the best things. And you just said it as far as like ways to buy your time back, accomplish more in your business, have these big goals, but then having the right people in place to where you're not the one responsible for what might seem like everything. And so I love that.
Yeah, because as a business owner, the feeling, hearing you walk through all of the pain points, I want to make sure that we hit on the feeling that comes after all of this. And for me, going through and laying the foundation and really getting infrastructure is like a breath of fresh air. It gives me permission to exhale because a lot of entrepreneurship and running your business, you feel like you're holding your breath because there's so much that's going on. So if you're listening to this and you're like, just know that this is how you kind of take a deep breath and go, okay, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I was actually just having a conversation actually with your mom. I haven't even told you this conversation yet.
Okay,
So,
Mike, thanks for coming in and
yeah,
all of you
Mike.
that are
So,
listening.
no, but we were having a conversation and it was about this exact topic though, around over the last 10 years of multiple businesses running small organizations, larger organizations. The number one thing I've figured out is that the better people I surround myself with and the more I can delegate out and having something in place that's structured, the more freedom I have and the more money we're making and the more I enjoy what I'm doing. So, which is exactly what you're talking about, Mike. And so it's funny, I just had that conversation this weekend with your mom.
Hey, Mom. I love this. Mike, thank you so much. This is such a great conversation. If somebody wanted to connect with you and say, you know what, I loved it so much, but I am not the implementer. Mike Jones is. Who? Mike Jones. So if they wanted to connect with you, what would be the easiest way for them to follow along, connect, book a call? What does that look like?
Find me at eosworldwide.com/Mike Jones or email me mike.jones@eosworldwide.com.
Perfect.
We'll put it in the show notes too, so you can just tap away.
Mike, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much. You gave a lot. I mean, my entire page is full of notes. You gave the exact steps, details. So we appreciate that very much. And I've got to ask you all that are listening right now, like, I would love to know a takeaway. So text me a takeaway, all right, that you're going to implement right now just from Mike's conversation, because he gave a ton of valuable information. 816-727-7610. Other than that, as always, time and attention are our most valuable assets. We appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today on The Buzz. Mike, thank you again, my man.
Thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it.